I can still remember how jealous I was when I played minor hockey, and I would just work my ass off. Like, I was a workhorse all the time. I push myself, I'd work hard, I'd do the workouts, the box jumps, the cardio. If I had a bad game, I would go run laps after the game to try to push myself. I was the definition of like a motivational video. And yet I would always stay stuck on the third or fourth line. Now, of course, there's politics. Of course, there's all that other stuff that can get in the way. But I knew that I could get there. I knew I had the ability within me to still earn that spot, even despite the politics. And I couldn't figure out what it was. I could not figure out what was stopping me. What am I doing wrong? I feel like I should be doing everything right. So then my dad and I started digging. And what we noticed was we started watching videos by Daryl Belfry. And you can see in some of these videos, I'll show you kind of just like a small little clip. If I might have to take it down because YouTube might block me. But essentially, you can see that when Patrick Kane was working with Belfry, what they would do is they would work on specific tools and skills and abilities, and they would really just work on things that weren't common. These were much more specific and detailed things than what the common coach was working on. And I remember going out to skills coaches and they would just kind of let us flow and make stuff up, and they might show us a few things. And I remember doing some programs and some skill sessions where a coach would really break it down and go into detail. But I never really thought that much of it. I thought it was a good idea, but not really anything special. But then when I started looking into what Belfry did, it really started to click what was going on. So the thing I really discovered was that though I was pushing myself really hard, that was only a layer. That was only a part of it. When you watch Kane train with Belfry, it wasn't like they were bag skating. Something different was happening. What was happening is that they were training with intention. That was the lesson. That was the thing I didn't get. They were training with a clear intent to learn something specific that was applicable from practice into a game. See, that was a game changer when that started to click for me. So really what was happening is that I was believing in the myth that hard work was what was going to get me to the next level. And I listened to what the best player said, which was, I worked hard, I did all this stuff, and that's what got me there. But the key thing to realize is that, yes, hard work can get you from one place to another, but it's oftentimes not the thing that's going to take you from where you are to the next place. Hard work is only one level of a level of thinking, or the tiers or hierarchy of thinking when it comes to actually developing as a player. So if you don't have the hard work part actually understood, then yeah, you have to work on understanding that part of it. But it's very, very difficult to get beyond this because we're taught as players that hard work is the solution. Push yourself, make yourself better just through grinding it out, right? There's actually a saying, like, we call people grinders for a reason, because the idea you got to grind it out. That might be your issue, but it's probably not your issue if you're here. So when you think of hard work, what you really want to think of is that hard work is like putting gas in a car. So you can put a certain amount of gas in the car, but if the car can only go 150 miles per hour, it doesn't matter if you overfill the tank, it's only going to go 150. There comes a point where you have to change something about it, whether it's you have to change the engine or you have to change something about the actual components of the car so that it can go faster. You can't just put more fuel in and expect you're going to magically get ahead. So that's the myth of hard work, is that if you keep doing the same things over and over again, you keep doing exactly the same drills the exactly the same way, you're not going to get better. You're going to stay stuck. So what you need to become aware of is, first of all, what does your coach want? What does he want from you, and what does he need, and what can you provide? Now, the second thing is you want to get clear on what are the weaknesses that you have that are getting in the way of your game, and what are the strengths that you have that you could play to. And then how can you specifically improve both of those things? How can you improve your bottlenecks, and how can you improve on your strengths to close the development gap? The development gap is the gap between where you are and where you need to be to get to the next level. And that's what you're missing right now. There is a gap in your development. So if you want to rapidly accelerate your development, you actually have to get clear on what is it that the coach wants in a first or second liner. What are those details that they have? What are the details that he wants? And what are the details you can actually work on and the roles you can fulfill with your current skills and the skills that you can develop? Now, you don't want to be shooting for, I'm going to have an elite level one-timer if your one-timer sucks, but maybe you can find a way to fit a role of a possession and a more power forward style and learn how to integrate that into your game. There are abilities you can find within your development and start to implement them in. But most people just blindly work hard and expect that that's going to be the thing that gets them to the first or second line. Sure, it might be, but if you've been working really hard and you can only get to the third or fourth line at the current level, you're going to stay stuck there. So the way you really want to think is you want to think about the core, clear levels it's going to take for you to get to where you want to go. You have to actually get clear on what is it that you're trying to achieve, and then set the clear intentions for that. You can't skip out on this step. You can't just pretend that I don't need to set intention. Setting intention and having clear goals for what you're going to accomplish in every training session allows you to gain leverage on your time. Leverage on your time means you get more for what you put in. So if you put in 1 energy point, you get 5 skill points back, as opposed to what someone else might do where they put 1 energy point in and they get 1 skill back. It means you're getting 5 times better than that other person, and over time that allows you to separate massively with your entire game if you're always applying leverage. Now, the most important thing you want to know when it comes to improving on your actual development, right, and creating leverage, is understanding that there are ways of thinking about hockey. I call these the levels of thinking. And the way you want to think about the levels of thinking are that there are 6 core levels. And on each of these levels, you basically want to think like you elevate up the levels. So you don't just stay in one place, but you're always kind of trying to elevate up. Naturally, hockey players, as they get older, they do start to naturally elevate levels. When they have any new information that comes in, they learn from the people around them. But if you get stuck at a certain level, you may be limited. And hard work is really the 3rd level, which you can see here, is the 3rd level on the pyramid. And so therefore, if you don't keep accelerating and moving up, your development is going to get very stagnant. So now, let's break down the 6 core levels. So the first level is essentially something you want to think of as, this is like the info-aware level, right? This is where someone is aware of, there is information out there. I can watch Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and I can watch all that stuff. I can learn, I can get better. These are the players who go and tell people, oh yeah, like I'm going to be the best. I have all this info. I've been watching McDavid all summer. And then they go into the games and they're like, I don't know why I can't do any of this stuff. Well, it's because they didn't actually go to the second level of thinking, which is action aware. So they're info aware in level 1, then they're action aware in level 2. When I say action aware, what I mean is that you're aware of the actions you need to take. So you actually start to take some actions. So you might see some videos, you might just be intrigued and pick up a stick and start stick handling every day. You may stick handle a lot, but you're just doing a bunch of stuff and you're kind of throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks, right? So you just try a bunch of stuff, you see what happens. So that's really level 2, is where you start to see these players, they're trying stuff, they're messing around, but they're not really like developing what they need to develop, they're just developing stuff, right? And that can work for some players if they get lucky and the groove works out, but for a lot of players it doesn't, because they're not actually, number 3, or level 3, working hard. So the 3rd level of thinking is hard work aware or effort aware. And when you think about being effort aware, what I mean is that you're aware that if you apply more effort to just taking random actions and you work really hard, you're really focused, you put in a lot of energy into it, and you're really just crushing it every single day, it's just like any workout program. You can make gains on pretty much any workout program for a certain amount of time. But if you want to make long-term gains, you need to actually have a plan. And to make long-term gains or faster short-term gains, there is something else that has to come in, which is level 4 thinking. And level 4 thinking is where things really start to like dramatically separate players. These are players who apply leverage to their system. So these are players who learn how to move more effectively, so they master their mechanics. These are players who learn how to go into more depth with certain techniques, certain decisions that they make, and they learn to apply leverage to their system. right? So they apply leverage to something, and it's not necessarily, they're not applying leverage to everything, but they realize if I do something that's more effective, if I work smarter rather than harder, then I will get ahead. That's a big separator, because if you're just working hard but on the wrong things, you can spend thousands, hundreds of hours, hundreds or thousands of hours, not hundreds of thousands, that's a lot, but you can spend all these hours and not get very far. Somebody could spend a quarter, half the time, and they somehow get ahead of you, and it doesn't make sense. Well, it's because they applied leverage. They got more for their time, right? Pretty simple. And so when you reach level 4, this is where you start to see players who start to get a ton of points. They start making tons of plays, and this can happen by chance, but this can also be engineered. This is what Belfry does. This is what great coaches do. Go to a coach who is at least a level 4, who understands how to apply leverage. Don't just go to a coach who pushes you hard and bag skates you, because that's what you're seeing when you go out to a flow drill type practice. You're seeing somebody just flow around, mess around, and it doesn't work. And that's why, right? Because if you're just doing things for the sake of doing them, if there's not an actual reason, then they're not high leverage activities, and you're not thinking in that level, and you've lowered yourself to a lower level, right? And if a coach, all he does is talk and doesn't have you do the drills, then that's info aware. If they are, giving you stuff to do and just saying, go try stuff, that's action aware. If they're telling you to work hard and push yourself, that's effort aware. And then you get into that next tier, which is leverage aware, where you're actually doing the most effective things. And this is why you see people who are willing to invest in themselves and have personal coaches for mental, skills, physical training. It's why they start to separate over longer periods of time, because they get more for their time, right? And that's what the advantage is of hiring someone. It's just being real. And you can find that information in other places. That's why I try to put out, all the information is out there. I try to just throw it kind of out there for you to learn, but you have to understand why the information matters, right? And that's where leverage thinking, if you're in that place, you're somebody who's looking at information and you're applying it, you're working hard with it, and you're starting to see results. You're somebody who has worked with somebody like a Train 2.0. They worked with a personal skills coach. They work with a physical trainer, right? They have a mental coach. These are the type of people who are applying that. Now, when you have a development coach, this is where you get into level 5 thinking. Level 5 thinking is applying a systematic approach. And also, obviously, you're going to have physical trainers, mental trainers who also think in a systematic way. They're systems aware, right? And the reason they're systems aware is because they're aware of a holistic system. They're aware of that the mind and the body and skills have to work together. That's why with our programs, we call it the hybrid development method, right? The hybrid hockey development method. Right? Big words. And the reason we have that is because it's about blending the mind and the body together. We're not getting stuck in thinking it's only one or the other. No, you want to bring them together. The mind, the body, and obviously skills is like the physical abilities and like the skill abilities. It's all one. It's all a cohesive system. And that's why someone's systems aware when they're aware that if I sleep well, if I eat well, and I train hard, and I have an effective training system, and I have it written out by somebody who knows what they're talking about, then I know that those things are going to allow me to get more out of my skills training, right? Even though you might think, oh no, I can just mess around, I can just do random skills. This is what basketball used to be caught up in. They used to think in basketball, oh, I can't put on muscle because then I won't have the skills. No, if you understand the holistic system, you need to learn skills as you build your muscles and your body and your strength so that your body stays coordinated as you develop those abilities progressively. And then the system works together, right? Systems aware in terms of the body performance, a doctor is systems aware, right? Because they're aware that everything works as a system. And a shitty doctor will only tell you, oh, okay, you're overweight. Okay, well, what you should do is just fix this one specific thing, not thinking, well, you might have some psychological stuff you need to deal with that's causing you to not take action. Like you might be dealing with some depression or anxiety. You might be dealing with, there could be another sickness that's causing it. A good doctor will look at the whole system and start to understand how it all connects together. Maybe you're sleeping poorly. That could be contributing to it. Maybe you have poor habits in terms of how you manage yourself and your lifestyle, right? That all goes together into the system. Are you starting to see how this kind of clicks together? Right? And now, the 6th level of thinking is where you start to see just it's just a game changer. This is where people become just a completely different person. And so what a systems level thinker is really doing, right? Or like a systems aware thinker in level 5, what they're doing is they're just aware of the system and how it sits right now. And maybe they look a little into the future, but they kind of just think of it as like, okay, the body is the body right now. But a time-aware person is able to look at a system over time and understand and have awareness that there are periods of time where you can do certain things and focus on specific elements of the system. You can't just do everything all at once. You can't get faster and improve conditioning at the same time and get the most out of both of those things. There's a saying that I listened to by a guy named Ben Clairfield, a really elite physical trainer. He talks about this idea that you can't sit one ass on two horses. And it's a really good way to think of this, right? You can't chase a whole bunch of different things at once. Yes, you can pursue, like there is an argument that you can have a more hybrid style of development in terms of your physical training, right? So you can, and same with skills training, like you can integrate and work on your skating and your hands and these things. But there is a certain level where you can't just pursue all things. Like you're not going to be able to have time to master your shot, to master your skating, master your stick handling, and get the most out of each of those. And so instead of balancing it out and only spending a small amount of time on each, you periodize and develop over a period of time, and you understand how everything integrates together and how taking a break from one thing opens up space for another, and understanding how the puzzle fits, and then how that puzzle will fit in the future, and how by doing certain things it opens up more capacity for growth. Right? We started to get into more complexity there, but do you see how that is a different level of thinking? And so again, this is why you want to work with a physical trainer who understands periodization, who understands that yes, you can do like micro cycles. This is something that Westside Barbell believes in. They do something where it's a wave periodization. So they kind of wave up and then they cycle back down. And you can do things like that. You can do micro waves or cycles or periods, but you can't just do the same thing over and over again. And so you have to understand how to change things and how to adapt things over time. And that's what a level 6 awareness thinker has. So where do you sit? Where are you on that range? And really ask yourself, because if you're stuck in one of the lower levels, it's going to cost you in the long run. And trust me, I'm not here to try to tell you, you have to figure it out. You have to be a certain level. It's not always perfect and better, right? Because people who do move up that elevation, the problem they will run into is that they get too cerebral. They start to think too much. And yes, you do need to think about these things when you're developing and training or preparing your training. But then you have to have the ability to disconnect from that thinking and that ego and that cerebral part of your brain. And so it's not always better to be elevated. There's lots of players who overthink the game and who make mistakes. But if you want to be the best you can be, you have to understand how all of these levels work and make sure you have people who are thinking on those levels. So if you think on that level and understand how to do that, then you can pick people and put people on your team and your development team to get you to where you want to go. This is stuff I wish I understood. I wish it made more sense to me. My dad did the research. I started to understand it, but now it's making more and more sense to me. And that's why I teach it to so many players, is because it makes total sense when you really connect the dots and realize that you have to be info aware. You have to be aware of the info that's out there. You have to take action. You have to apply effort. You have to then apply leverage to that effort so you get the most out of it. And then with that, you then have to understand and be aware of the systems and how the whole system works. And then you have to be aware of how systems work over time. And when you understand that, you become somebody who is unstoppable in the long run. You become a long-term player, and you will be successful if you really stick to this and you don't fall down to lower levels and then, give up because you're just working hard and you can't figure out why you're not succeeding. It's because you're not applying leverage consistently, right? Or you don't have a system and the system doesn't work. Or if you are applying a system and the system is good, but you're getting stuck, then you don't understand how to adapt and change and apply time and understand and be aware of time. So I'm losing my voice here, so I hope you enjoyed this. If you really like this, if this was good for you, subscribe so that you get these videos coming through. or subscribe to the podcast so you get the audio. And make sure that you don't forget to actually like these and leave a comment for me. And again, everybody says this, but the reason this matters is because it really helps push this in the algorithm so that we can grow this, so I can keep doing this and keep helping you guys. So share it with somebody, leave a comment, let me know what you got from this. Ask questions below, I'll answer all the questions. And I hope you have a great rest of your week and you keep crushing it. I'll see you guys at the next level. I'll talk to you soon.